right, I'm going to go. I think that's what you do for like a marker or something.
You do?
I don't know. I'm not an media programmer, nothing.
They always laugh at me at work because I'll go like this. I'll be at the mic and then I'll go. Because I can't seem to manage to like flap lower than them. Whatever.
You got to see it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do this. Okay. All right. And welcome to PPeXplain This. I'm Emily Wray. I am one of the mentors in the MCBS project and portfolio experience. And it is my utmost joy to be speaking with Meagen Gibson today. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because at one time, Meagen was also a course director in the MCBS program. Legend has it that her face still appears on some of the instructional content and videos, particularly in the media entrepreneurship course. So if you haven't gotten there yet, you'll get a chance to see Meagen then. But before MCBS and after MCBS, Meagen has done a ton of cool things. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Meagen, what should we know about you before we start the combo?
Well, first and foremost, you should know that I went to my YouTube profile yesterday because I was uploading a YouTube video of my son and my finger was hovering over the delete button on those lecture videos. I was just like, today's the day that I choose violence. But then I thought of all the students and the course directors, and I was like, no, you should tell someone before you're going to do that. Anyway, intro about me. You already heard I worked at Full Sail for a little bit, but I'm going to tell you a short snippet about my background. I'm the oldest child of a lower middle class home in Indiana, and I was the first person in my family to go to college and graduate from college, and I paid for it myself. I say that because we're talking to students here, and I want you to know that what you're about to hear about my life and what I've done came from that beginning, right? I spent my career telling other people's stories, first as a journalist and then as a producer and a director of documentary and competition reality shows. You might know my work from The Voice, if anybody watches that.
This is The Voice.
Yeah, that's me. And then after my second son was born, I looked at my husband and I was like, let's get the heck out of here. And we lived in Los Angeles at that time. He was a music producer and I was a television producer. And we didn't have any plan. And we just made a total lifestyle change so that we could actually raise our kids ourselves and have more control over our time, because in the long scheme of life, the asset that you have the least amount of control over, but that ends up mattering the most to you is time, especially with the people that you love. And that was how I came to Full Sail, was in that kind of no plan. And somebody in the room with us, it sounds like there's a person in the room with us. Renee Otero actually introduced me to the head of the department here, Kathy Craven. And that was how I came to work here at Full Sail for a good 7-year run, which was wonderful. And ironically taught me more about my confidence presenting in front of the toughest crowd of people I've ever met in my life than anything else could have. Not television producing, not being a journalist, not anything. It was teaching a new group of students every 28 days. It was like a crash course to keeping people's attention and having confidence in myself, which was, I didn't know I needed till I got it here. So thanks, all of you I've never met. And then where I found myself now is, and the entire reason that people talk about networking until their faces turn blue, especially when you're a college student, is because a rock star I met in 2005, who would become a good friend of mine, introduced me to an entrepreneur in 2016 who would ask me to run his company in 2021. So there are like relationships, networking. And what nobody really tells you is that it's a long game and you're not playing it with that intention. You're just kind of like going along, meeting people, being a good person, creating relationships, and then they kind of come around. So that brings me to my current position as CEO of ConsciousLife.com, which is a self-help platform based online and membership platform based in London.
Wow. And you still have time to do this.
I made time to do it.
Thank you. So hearing all of that, I'm super curious what a typical day might look like for you in your role as CEO, if there is such a thing as a typical day.
There's just like with Full Sail and the schedule, and there's kind of like a, the last Sunday of the month, everybody's trying to turn their stuff in. And like there's a rhythm that happens. While I don't have a typical day, I do have a kind of a rhythm. And the majority of the things that I do as CEO is one big part is project management. We have a worldwide team. So my tech and web development team is in Malaysia. My marketing team, social media team, the founder of my company, they're in London. My affiliate marketing manager and myself are in the United States. And so there is a lot of kind of project management involved just because we all have to make sure that we're all, I likened it last week too, we're all playing baseball, but sometimes we're not all on the same field. So we're all warming up like, I wonder when the rest of the team's going to arrive. Woo, I'm warm. Limbs feel good. So my job is to make sure everybody's on the same field, playing the same game, toward the same goals. And then I do a ton of outreach, research, and interviews. So a large portion of my job is to interview experts and researchers and people who are at the top of their field. So not only finding who that talent is and who has a great message and who I want to put on a platform, but then also approaching them cold. I don't know any of these people. I just write them a cold email. And my response rate is quite high, I must say. My husband,
point of pride.
Yeah, my husband who's in sales is like, what's your response rate right now? It's like 92%. He's like, mine's like 14. So I like to rub that in his face a lot. And then future planning, right? So making sure I've got the 30,000 foot view of what the company's goals are for the next month, the next 6 months, the next year, and the next 2 years. Everybody else's jobs are to kind of keep focused on what is the next right thing to do and kind of the minutia of what they do in a day. And I depend on them to do that. And my job is to have the big picture. And then unfortunately, a lot of content creation and promotion, which, my background is in television and filmmaking, things like that, in actual creative production. So it's easy for me, but I don't enjoy it.
All right. So what I'm hearing is that a big part of your job as a CEO of a global company is also just to create content and get it out there.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Can never get away from this content creation.
You can't. And the thing that nobody tells you is that when you're going to pursue a business, if you're going to create a business, if you're going to write a film and you want to promote it, if you are going to, die cast a keychain and sell it on Etsy, you better want to talk about that thing until you run out of breath and your last muscle has no more energy left, because you're going to be asked to talk about it. I often fantasize about like Ernest Hemingway. I was in Hawaii over Christmas break and there's like a Hemingway bar and, you go to Key West and there's a Hemingway, the Hemingway cats. And I was thinking about it in the shower this morning and I was like, you know why? Because he didn't live anywhere and he didn't have to create social media. He just went on like a drunken fantasy He was like the original travel blogger. He was just like gallivanting around the world
to beautiful places and keeping a journal.
Exactly. And then publishing every once in a while, like high speed, low drag. No costs involved, no overhead. He was just like, I'm going to go away for a while. I'm going to write and I'm going to come back. And there's not a creative on earth that has that luxury right now. We live in a different world. Every single book writer, publisher is going to ask you to be your own marketing and sales agent. And it's just a different world. So it's the nature of the beast.
And it's really this topic and probably a lot of the tangents that we'll go on that I think is really interesting to speak about in this MCBS space, and particularly with students who are in the project and portfolio experience, because there has been such a shift over the last couple of years, pushed forward a lot by the pandemic, but to creating so much more content on your own at home as opposed to with a team in a high production value studio. And so I want to, kind of steer the conversation a little bit in that direction to hear how you are adapting to this new world order and this new demand for content rapidly. So question for you is, how do you balance the production value, the quality of the thing that you're creating, with the production efficiency? So the quantity, how quickly you can get it up and out to where it's going. And I was hoping you could speak to how you're managing that, because your background is in really high-end production. Like we're talking about The Voice and other television shows. But now you're doing things at home. Speak to us a little bit about that.
It's the biggest problem because my expectations are super high. And just about any's are. There's this great speech by Ira Glass Glass called Taste, and it's animated by several people online. If you just look up Ira Glass Taste, and you'll see the Vimeo video of his. And that's the big problem. Everybody has taste and everybody's expectations are high. Just because I have a ton of experience doesn't mean everybody listening doesn't have high expectations for their work. But the problem is on The Voice, there's 250 people making that show. And at my house, there's me. And actually, the way that I finally got my head around this is from a former student of ours who graduated and has made a living out of teaching people how to create content and is a great content creator herself, an MCBS grad, Andrea Mora, who I think goes by Andrea Casanova now is her handle on TikTok. Look her up. She's a great mentor.
She's so amazing.
So I actually paid her for her class a year ago. And one of the things that I took out of that class that I refer to again and again and again is this idea of high, mid, and low lift production pieces. So what I mean by that is like a high level lift would be something that you know is going to take a long time to produce. So I'm going to use my DSLR. I'm creating a skit. I am, I am maybe acting out two different parts. I'm going to have to edit together. Maybe there's some visual effects. Maybe I'm doing a voiceover at part of it. Maybe there's audio effects. It's a much higher, it's going to take me longer to produce. For anybody that's a fan of like Elise Myers on TikTok, she's got some videos that are going to be, she's speaking straight into the camera, confessing something silly, or there's going to be one that's like a longer, more heavily produced, right? So that's higher lift, higher production. It's going to take me more time. So I do like one of those a week, if not maybe two at the most, because again, it's me. I'm doing everything and also running a company. A mid lift would be something like, it's some B-roll maybe. It's going to be a story that's going to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? So I've got a point. It's here I started this. I got to here and it ended in this way. A low level lift is going to be something like Instagram stories where I'm just talking straight to the camera, or it could just be B-roll. I've gotten into a habit. I set up a tripod every day and I take B-roll of myself doing something. I could be interviewing somebody like you. So I'm B-roll of just my side where I'm talking into the mic and I'm reacting to somebody. And then I'm going to voice over that with something that I want to take away from my day. So just having different levels of production as far as the energy I need to put in it, the time it's going to take me to make, and having a lot of ideas for those is one of the things. The other thing is I carry around a notebook. It's a Moleskine 8.5 by 5.5 or something. I have 40 of these at home. I keep them all and I am constantly writing down ideas for content. So that I always have something to fall back on. I've always got a running list of ideas of things that I need to or can produce. I'm like, let me give you some of my ideas. Yeah, I'm in the mental health advocacy field. So mine are all about, these are all really deep. I don't want to take too really heavy. So we'll just keep it light. But yeah, so that's the way I mainly organize it, is that I'm just constantly filming myself. It's a real exercise in nauseating yourself with yourself, right? Like the narcissism pit part of it where you're just like, no, I don't think I'm that great. This is just part of my job.
So let me ask, if I'm kind of tracking with your high, medium, low level lift, does that correspond with your high level stuff is more evergreen content that you know is going to have life beyond this second in time, and the lower level stuff is like, it's a story or a reel or a TikTok. So it's here today, gone tomorrow. Why am I going to spend so much time doing it?
Well, yeah. And if you think about your like promoting yourself, so I'm going to talk about Instagram only just because it kind of applies in general to all the other platforms, but not really. But that's where I spend the majority of my time, where the majority of our audience is. So if you look at my grid, what I want is for the stuff that you're going to see there, whether it's a post or a reel, to be evergreen. It's going to apply to you no matter when you find it. And that part of my grid is the stuff that is going to find people and how my reach is going to expand. I'm going to try to tag other creators, experts, whatever, in the stuff that I'm creating, because then that expands my reach. I get a larger following. And so that's what that stuff is for gaining new people to my platform or to the platform that I manage. Things like stories, that's for the people that are already there. You're talking to the audience that already loves you, is already a follower, is already a subscriber, whatever. So it's also thinking about who you're talking to and why you're talking to them. If somebody is finding my reel, they found me for the first time. So I need to make sure that that the piece that they're going to see also encourages them to act in some way. Sign up for the free conference that's coming up. Subscribe to my posts. Turn on your alerts so you always know when we have something new. Those kinds of calls to action. Or even just comment, tag a friend below. All these, I make fun of I tell my kids about this kind of stuff. I'm like, you need to see the marketing that you're being subjected to all the time. And so I'm like, subscribe below. Or
basically to turn interest or attention into a possible lead.
Exactly. Because what you're trying to do, and the only thing that you're ever going to have value around, other than the fact that you as a creator are valuable because of your unique voice and perspective, is the list that you're able to grow. Because the platforms you're not in control of. They're going to change their terms of service, the way that they pay, what they take from you for providing this for you for free. They're going to change it on a whim all the time, constantly, ever changing. So instead of trying to adapt, make sure that you're trying to capture the people as they come in. You're getting their email. You can sell them PDFs or guides or ebooks or services or products or whatever, because you have a way to directly communicate to them that does not rely on this second, third party system.
Yeah. Also here today, gone tomorrow, potentially.
Absolutely.
Okay. I hear that you are basically a one-woman shop at home now, creating all of this amazing content for this global company. What's been the most challenging part of that?
There's lots of challenges. I'm a bit of an introvert, even though you wouldn't expect it from my energy level. And so the biggest adjustment for me is the noise in my home. So I've traveled a lot with my family, and I've also traveled a lot without my family for work, but I stay with other families when I travel. And each time I travel away from my family, my takeaway when I come home is that we, in particular, are very loud. We are quite an extra bunch. My husband went to music school and was a music producer. Both my kids play the drums and the xylophone and the piano. And they also, I've got one of my kids just makes EDM beats all the time. And so I have a dedicated space at home. I have an office. It has 4 walls and a door. It is not, however, what I would like, which is like a padded cell that's soundproof, where the door locks from the inside. So that would obviously, that would be ideal. And we're working toward me getting a studio space so that I have somewhere to go. But it's also really, really nice to have my office because everything's set up. Mm-hmm. And it also creates a sense of urgency, which is your best friend as a creator. It doesn't matter if it's falsified urgency or real urgency. We used to call it air dates in television. So you would have, when you were making something, you had an air date. You knew that your show was going to be on the air on January 15th or May 7th or whatever it was. And so you were up against a deadline. The problem with a lot of creators today is that they don't have anything pushing them to finish. And nothing's ever finished if you don't have an air date. So for me, the air date is when the school gets out. Right? I'm like, I need to record this right now. I've got to get everything done, because then when the influx of children, I sound like I'm running like an orphanage or something. When the children come home, then I lose control of the environment and surrender to what I'm supposed to surrender to, what I said I wanted all those years ago, which is to be with my children.
And now you are.
Careful what you wish for.
All of us were really excited about working from home too. So, and speaking from that, you have this home office and you are finding your rhythm of how to create the content that you need to create with the tools that you have, with the time that you have. What changes have you made either to routines or equipment to help facilitate what it is that you're trying to do?
Lots. And I would say I've made a lot of changes, but I've made them incrementally over time. I didn't try to make everything perfect all at once. The first thing that I wanted to do and that was important to me was make sure that the audio was really, really, really good. I don't have advice for people on this because I'm married to an audio engineer. And we like to laugh because every once in a while something will go bonkers. And he'll be like, aren't you like a television producer? And I'll be like, I have people for this. What I mean is somebody else is an expert in that. So I'm very, very lucky in the audio regard. I know how to turn everything on for the audio. I don't know how to fix it when it goes wrong. And I will routinely scream from my office, get the help where you can. But for video, I started with just like a webcam, right? It was a cheap webcam I got off Amazon, 4K, but I couldn't control the depth of field. I couldn't control the way that it looked. My office is not gigantic at home. There's a wall 4 feet behind me. During quarantine, when we all were at home, my husband and I actually built a bunch of bookshelves and built desks that would work so that I could clamp lights onto the desk and clamp the camera tripod onto the desk so that I could control where everything was. Then I upgraded to a DSLR and got a better lens and figured out how to make that work with things like Zoom and Riverside FM. That's another one. I upgraded from recording on Zoom to recording on Riverside FM. If anybody's never heard of it, fantastic platform. Riverside.fm. It's a podcasting platform, but will also record video. So it's basically like Zoom for co-creating audio and visual files, but extremely good quality video, way better quality. The quality that you're recording when you're with the person is pretty low usually, but the recording that you get afterwards is excellent. You can create clips for social media out of the platform itself. You can mark them as you're recording, which is a huge thing for me, so that I don't then have to go through an hour-long transcript and figure out where the clips are. I mark them as I'm hearing them, because the better you get at interviewing people, the more you can hear. I hear not only like good clips that I want to mark as the chapters in the video for the conference, but I also hear clips that I want to pull out for social media, things that will sound really provocative out of context and will get people's attention.
You're like, that's the gold. Market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've never heard of that platform. I'm excited to check it out. Is it a subscription-based service?
It is.
Okay.
It's pretty reasonable. And I think the free level allows you to record like 5 hours a month or something like that. But yeah, it's not a perfect platform, but it is definitely an upgrade from Zoom.
So when we're talking about this platform, you are using both external mics and your DSLR when you're doing it?
Yeah.
Okay. Just to clarify, this isn't you open up your laptop and you're just using the in-laptop mic or camera.
But I mean, everybody starts that way. Like I said, I don't think the tools need to get in the way of the thing. I would say for me, and everybody has a different philosophy on this. Me, I'm going to go running for 3 weeks before I decide I need new sneakers. I'm not going to buy $200 running sneakers and then be like, now I'm a runner. I'm going to need the tool before I get the perfect tool. I make myself earn the tool I want, the toy, if you will. So all those upgrades happened after I was like, oh, I can do this. I am good at this. Oh, I'm going to stay in this job. Oh, I like this. Right. So they were me investing in myself because I'd done the work.
So one of the things that you and I chatted about last week was around using the right tool for the right type of content. You made, some decisions about what to record on your phone and edit on your phone versus, what you bring into your laptop and do there. Can you just speak a little bit about that thought process, decision making?
Yep. So ironically, my first job out of college was as an editor. But I will do anything I can to avoid editing on my laptop. I hate it. It's an obstacle to me to getting things done. So I will do everything in my power to not only film on my phone, and I've got the best phone I can possibly get, and usually do for this reason, and then edit everything in my phone. I'm going to do my voiceover on my phone. I don't know where I left my bag, but I got the little Rode Go 2 audio mics. I think that's what it's called. Anyway, we'll put it in the show notes.
We'll fact check that.
Yeah, I think it's the Rode Go 2, and you can plug it. It's a microphone, like a little box. It's like the size of a box of matches, if anybody's ever seen one of those. It's very old school. Back in my day, we had matches. But it's like the size of a box of matches. And then it's got a receiver that's also the size of a box of matches. You take a tiny little cable, plug it straight into your phone, and you've got amazing quality audio that is mobile. So I've got the little, the mic clipped to my shirt, and then I can go on a walk down the path by my house with the receiver plugged into my phone and have really, really high quality audio. I've got a different background. I can change the background, because the problem with my home office is like I've got one view that really works with the DSLR. It's beautiful. I love it. My plants are thriving behind me. Everybody thinks it's a fake background because it looks so good. But there's no other, if you turn it in any direction, it's a hot mess, right? Of cables or whiteboards I don't like, and I need to paint that wall, right? So that gives me the mobility to get out and create in the world, change my background. I could do it at a coffee shop. I could, do it in the parking lot at the grocery store if it strikes me. I've done it in the parking lot at the dentist's office when I'm waiting for my kid to get his braces tightened, right? So it removes an obstacle. So everything I'm doing to create is trying to remove obstacles, not put them in my way. So that's why I'm trying to record as much as I can on my phone and then edit it on my phone, put all the text, all the effects on my phone, voiceover on my phone. I usually use CapCut, which is the TikTok proprietary editing software, and then also InShot. And both of those are free. And then that way I'm able to upload to the platforms really, really easily without anything getting in my way.
Okay. So how has this experience impacted your creativity?
There's most days I would rather, if I'm honest, don't anyone send this to my founder. I would rather create content for myself and for other people all day long than actually be a CEO. When I lived in LA, everybody was like, do you want to be a showrunner? And I was like, no. And they were like, why? And I was like, because that doesn't sound like fun. There's nothing fun. To me, I don't find management fun. I don't find spreadsheets and profit and loss sheets fun. It's not fun for me. I don't get up in the morning like, how much profit did we make? Right? Like, that's just not what motivates me. So I love the content creation part of it. I wish I could do more of it. I just don't have enough time. And I got to tell you, this is a problem for every single person I run into. I interview authors and experts for a living, and every single one of them has the same problem. I am obligated contractually to create this amount of content, and I don't have anyone in my life that I'm currently paying or can want to pay that will do it or is good at it or gets it, understands my voice, or can distill my research or my work into social media clips, right? It's a much harder thing than people realize. And also to get attention, and, you can do it badly, and lots of people do, but to do it well is a skill that takes a lot of practice.
Yeah, I often think to myself, if I could just manifest one particular kind of person in my life to help me, it would be someone who could speak in my voice and to create things on my behalf that is actually reflective of what I want to say or how I want to say it out there in the world. Because a lot of these things trip you up and prevent you from doing that. And so a lot of times I become that person for other people, particularly get hired to create this thing that goes out for this company. Kind of sounds like we're in similar boats.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another fun fact for our MCBS listeners is that Meagen and I were often confused for one another because we just both happen to have short, curly brown hair at the same time. Otherwise, we don't look anything alike. She's super fun and tall, and I'm short and pretty serious. But it was kind of fun because when I would walk around campus, people would be like, "Hey, Meagen," and I would just wave and smile. And the same thing would happen to Meagen. So it was like we were omnipresent. People were like,
they're everywhere.
They're on campus all the time.
She is everywhere. Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that we find ourselves in similar places right now too. So I'm thinking about our students again and, wanting to kind of bring this podcast to a close, a meaningful close. And I'm just thinking, like, in the role that you're in and with the experience that you have had, like, can you forecast any type of future for content creators who can do just a little bit of everything, which is essentially what an MCBS student is?
I've been thinking about this because the world rewards those who can pivot and adapt. And the wonderful advantage that either youth or an experience gives you is that you're more able to pivot and adapt. And there's been, especially in the last 2 years, a lot of talk about like resiliency, right? And so the biggest thing that I can tell people as far as what the future is right now, figure out how to pivot and adapt easily. And it's more of an attitude. It's a solution-minded and oriented attitude. And I used to teach an improv workshop when I was still here at MCBS. And the principal game of improv is a game called Yes and. And you just teach people how to say that before they speak. And in an improv, it's meant to be a really fun thing where you're just building on insane concepts and nothing's stopping anything because everybody has to say yes and before they just build on the scene. But in life, I've also found, and even as a CEO, because there's a lot of times I'm in a Zoom meeting with my whole team and somebody says something I want to strangle them for, but I have to, in my brain, utter, and I don't say it out loud, but I say yes and.
Oh, I actually say it out loud in meetings sometimes. I go,
Yeah.
yes, and.
Right? Because nobody needs a no but.
Yeah.
Nobody needs that.
Yeah.
Nobody needs the but. No one.
It extinguishes creativity and conversation and forward movement.
Exactly. So orienting yourself towards that yes and mentality, the solution-minded mentality, will make you really, really valuable and will make you somebody that people want to be around and will improve your resiliency. And also allow yourself the patience to progress, right? Your mistakes don't define you. Your value is unchanged, regardless of what you do in your career, what your personal life looks like. So just allow yourself to progress. And one of the things that I love about these Moleskine notebooks that I have is that I can see the ways even I've progressed. You know, I'm a middle-aged lady, but I can see 3 years ago, XYZ was really, really hard for me. And now it's not. And that continues throughout your life, but you won't notice it unless you're writing down what is hard or what just became easy or reflecting on your life. And especially in your life in your 20s goes fast. It goes really, really fast. And so give yourself credit for how far you've come and don't beat yourself up for where you haven't gone. These are much more esoteric things than I think you were going after as far as like the future of content creation. But I feel like the core of who you are and your attitude towards your work, then just reflect out. And that adaptability is what's going to be the most important because it's going to change in 2 years.
Yeah, I knew you were going to take it here when I framed that question. I didn't want your app recommendations. I really think this is going to be huge. No, I brought you in for, quite a reflective response there. Are there any questions that you thought I might ask or you hoped I would ask on this podcast?
I wrote something down about how to spawn creativity when you get bogged down. So I used to teach, and we talked about this earlier, I used to teach media entrepreneurship, which is definitely the most hated course in the entire curriculum. Having taught other courses in the curriculum, I can say that confidently. And I don't take offense to it. It's not personal. It brings up a lot of stuff for people. Right? It brings up their relationship to their intelligence around writing long form, very kind of formal stuff. It brings up their relationship to their intelligence around like math and numbers and planning, right? So if you didn't have parents that taught you how to budget, if you didn't feel like you did well in math, right? So it brings up all these things. And because of that, I was always trying to make everybody, it was the least creative, quote unquote, month in the degree program and everybody was like, I just want to go back to Photoshop. I hate this spreadsheet. And I get it. And I totally got it. And so when you're stuck, what I want you to remember is it makes sense. I just start with this phrase all the time. And I tell everybody, it makes sense that I hate this spreadsheet. It makes sense that I don't want to put these numbers in. Like, this isn't fun for me and I don't want to do it and I don't understand why it's valuable to me. And this is not very yes and of me. But like the way you get to the yes and is to just acknowledge the and but, right? Or the but I don't want to. So like it makes sense that I'm hesitating. It makes sense that I wait until Sunday at 9 p.m. to start all the work that's due that week, right? It makes sense because I wanted to do all this other stuff. But then if you're just stuck, if you really are trying to say it's Friday and you're trying to get your media entrepreneurship, now I can't think of the word, which is ironic, business plan. There you go. You're trying to get your business plan done for the month. And it's just, you're sitting there and you want to do it and you've planned the time, you're ready and your brain is just like, no, get out. And I don't mean quit the program. I mean, move your body, take a walk. I have a box of Legos in my office for this exact purpose because this will continue your whole life. You don't get to your mid 40s and I have to write a business plan. I have to write one yearly, right? And I don't ever want to write that business plan ever. So I will keep a little box of Legos on my desk, and I keep magnetic beads. There's kinetic sand, things like tactile things that I will literally be building and thinking about it. And then I'll be like, oh, okay, now I have the way to say that, or now I know the way to do that. That wouldn't be so hard. What would make this more fun? What would make this more enjoyable? Because beating your head against the rock or the brick wall, it never works.
Yeah. It sounds like igniting some kind of mobilizing energy in you.
Yes.
To move past whatever that big, scary, I don't want to do it thing looks like.
I mean, you always think of the perfect thing to say back to somebody when they said something that hurt you and you froze. You always think of that thing in the shower.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason you think of that thing in the shower or when you're driving is because you can't do anything else. So you can't think your way through it. You've got to take your mind off of it and do something else. And that always ignites. I'll take a walk and listen to somebody that I respect, a podcast or something like that, or music that really moves me. Remove yourself from the thing that is causing you all of the anguish, and but invoke your creativity. Julia Cameron, who used to be married to Martin Scorsese, if I could just name drop just one after another, she came up with this thing called the Artist's Way. And she does morning pages, but she talks about this thing called the Artist Date, which is when you once a week or once a month or however long, whenever you can afford to do it, take yourself out and be inspired. And that doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to cost you anything. I love to just people watch. That can be inspiring as heck. Listen to conversations of all the Rollins parents with their kids on Park Avenue, right? What are you overhearing? What kind of issues are there outside the Haagen-Dazs? Go somewhere you can sit outside a museum. We're extremely lucky here in Florida. There's lots of places to go. Get outside for the sunset. Honestly, put yourself outside at golden hour as much as you can.
I really appreciate this as kind of a place to wrap up the conversation, because it's just such an important reminder that learning is a process. It's not a destination. Mm-hmm. Knowledge is the outcome. You'll get some knowledge, but you will be a beginner for a while, and then you'll get a little better, and then you'll keep getting better. I think about when we first learned to write, how it looks like scribble and we write letters backwards, but we keep going, and then it becomes a little bit more legible. And if you spend more time on it, you might learn cursive. And then if you're amazing at that,
teach that anymore, by the way.
It'll be calligraphy. But that might be handwriting, or cursive might be something that you opt into, But the whole point is that when you start something, there's awkwardness, and there is, that it's hard, that these are skills that we acquire, but that we need to practice before they become artful. And in the project and portfolio space, what's really enjoyable and cool about it is that you get to decide where you spend that time, that it can be relevant to your skills, interests, talents, and ultimately help set you up for what you want to do in your life and in your career.
And if you're lucky, honest to God, if you're lucky, you'll have opportunities to be a beginner your whole life.
Mm-hmm. Ain't that the truth? Meagen Gibson, I just want to wholeheartedly thank you for making the time to come here and record this. It's been super fun. Thanks to our producer, Renee Otero, project and portfolio mentor extraordinaire, who is producing this segment. But as we wrap, Meagen, I just feel like it's important to say, or to thank you for how you inspired me a few years ago. That's really been super transformative in my own learning and development journey. And that was when you were telling me that you started an Instagram account just to talk about your professional life or what you were doing in teaching. And I, at that time, was kind of feeling the tension between I want to use my personal Instagram just to post pictures of my dinner and my dog, but I have all of these really cool
Who are we kidding?
things.
It was just your dog.
I know. Okay. We all know that it's just my dog. But I have all of these cool things that I want to say and stories that I want to share about the work that I do that I love. And the majority of that happens here in MCBS and at Full Sail. And so I very systematically started a new Instagram account that's solely a place that I get to share those stories. And it's not curatorial in the sense that, I'm planning what I share there. It's very much a reflection space for me. It becomes almost a portfolio of sorts to say, this is what I'm doing. This is what it looks like. This is how I spend my time. This is what it's meant to me. And just that opportunity to pause and write it down, kind of like how you're doing in your notebooks, has been such a powerful practice for me. So now I look back at it years, right? It's been years, and I smile and I think about, oh my gosh, remember the time that we did this or that? And it's allowed me to see my own progression over time. So I just want to thank you for inspiring me to do that.
And, it was all MCBS's fault. But also I will say there's so many people. The beautiful thing, social media can be so narcissistic, but the beautiful thing about it is that you get to say what's important about you. You don't have to wait for somebody to come and take your picture while you're doing something really meaningful to you. You get to say, this was really meaningful to me. And so often people are not keeping records for us, and we're not asking, like, document this for me. This mattered. Yeah. I mean, I still use photos that Renee took of me 5 years ago that are some of the best pictures I have of me, like, teaching and talking. And that was such a gift to me for him to actually, like, just take the photos and be like, you were here, you were doing that today. Right. And so, yeah, I'm glad that you're doing it because your contribution is monumental and important.
Well, same. Same.
Let's just go on.
Yes. Gush.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to the next PPX Explain This with a mystery guest yet to be determined. We'll see you next time.